the button.
I,
Bing buzz.
All right, party people in the place to be, Vandals, and all the people that are scared of horror movies. This is a brand new episode of Pink Spots. We are talking about some really, really cool stuff from England, and we're also joined by a really, really cool lad from England. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, senor?
what an introduction! Thank you very much, pal. Yeah, I'm Matt from the Empod, and I would like to consider myself a long distance, but also near and dear friend of both Joe and Johnny. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me.
He likes to call himself Matt, but his real name's Spanky. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
This
Anyone that knows
true.
Matt knows Spanky. Yeah. See, I felt bad for last time because we were supposed to do an episode a couple weeks ago, and I fucked up the times. I thought England was 6 hours ahead of us here, but it's really 5 because I was talking with EPHK, and he's in France, and it's 6 hours difference there, and I was like. In my mind, I was like 6 hours. I thought it was the same, but England's like 5. So then I remember you said you took a nap too. So I'm trying to send you messages, but you're not seeing them. And I was like, but we're do over. Take 2.
I had because I had pre-match nerves, and I thought, right, I'm not sitting here for an hour. I want to be fresh. I want to feel good. I'll just have a quick 40 winks, and then I'll jump on. And then I wake up to like all these messages, like, mistakes have been made.
That's why I was hoping you'd see it, and like we kind of stretched the like the beginning part. We were trying to stretch it as long as possible, hoping you'd see the message and jump on. But I guess your nap was pretty good.
The funniest part of it was when I didn't realise that we were just having like a chat between friends.
After,
still going on. So I was doing like all the like subscribe, follow, like share shit. And Joe's like, why are you being so self-referential, man? Like in his mind, I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, self-referential or what?
Yeah. So just happy to have you here this time. Managed to get the time zones good, and so it's really happy to have you here. We haven't done a show with you in like about a year now, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that last year was for many reasons a really demanding year. So we taped all the Warren Ellis episodes about a year ago, and they were just sort of in the back pocket. They weren't time sensitive, and it got to January this year, everything going a lot smoother. Just generally life was better. So I thought, well, it's about time we put those out. And also, if I do them now and I sort of reference them as being January episodes, it don't seem like they've been there for a year.
Yeah, because we didn't specify years, so yeah, so it worked out all right.
Exactly. Well, for me it did, yeah. But I mean, for the rest of you, probably what's he playing about?
Yeah,
up at this time on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, for me though, it's more about hanging out and chatting. So whether it actually comes out or not is, I mean, it's fun, but it's not the main reason why. Like, people tune in and stuff. It's cool. They watch it. You get some clicks, some views. It's nice, but really, it's just about shooting the shit about books we like, and that's the fun part.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with me and Tim, and obviously we have Tara, who like we kind of share, don't we? And then with Brian as well. That now I think we have a feel that's a lot similar to what you have on this channel, whereby we'd still be having that conversation whether or not it was being taped and put out. And it's just nice that when you put it out there, that I mean, when you say we've got 100 views, it seems so paltry, almost kind of pathetic. But ultimately, like, when you don't have a reputation, when you see those sort of numbers like accumulate, it does feel rewarding. That even if 20 out of 100 people have watched it all the way to the end, you feel like, well, that's someone that's consciously 20 people in the whole world that don't even know me and made a conscious effort to listen to me speak for 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun. I mean, you get your regulars, right? And they come on and it's fun.
Yeah. And we have this one listener from Belgium, from Brussels, that listens every single week. Now, it's really cool because almost as soon as the episodes get uploaded, like Brussels is there on the sort of the SoundCloud analytics. I think one day I'm going to get this like heartbreaking realization. It's somebody that I know listening to it through a VPN.
Oh shit! Yeah, imagine.
Yeah, like
uh,
yeah,
don't
yeah.
don't
If it
don't
was someone,
don't go digging. Just
no,
just
no, yeah,
don't
just be
don't
happy
shatter. Yeah, just live in the moment, man. Live in the moment. Don't look for the
because we're
truth.
actually
Don't. Was
we're
Mulder
actually
really
giving a
happy?
shout out at the end of
Was Mulder a happy man searching for the truth? No, he wasn't, man. He was miserable. So, just some things in life are just better left unknown.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So, Johnny, man, are we gonna do a check-in this time, or are we gonna hop straight into it?
No, we'll do a check-in. I don't see
All
why
right,
not.
cool. So, who's going first? Is it gonna be? Do you have anything to give a shout out, Matt? Any movies or any books you've read recently outside of the ones that we were doing on the episode?
Yeah, I don't have them with me because I'm at my dad's house in a different part of the country. However, this year on our podcast, I'm just going to do a little bit of lazy promotion. It's the end_pod or the end
Mm-hmm.
pod on all your listening locations. We're on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere that you'd expect a podcast to be. Anyway, so we're going through the new DCU site, and we started with Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Jesus Christ, is it good? Like immediately within probably the first some point between maybe first and second issue, I was sort of reading it, but there was this inner narration of, is this the best Tom King? Is this the best DC? Where does this land in like greatest of all time? And I forgot how much I actually enjoyed reading Tom King. Like Mr. Miracle was ages ago, Vision was ages ago. Even like a Mega Man, which was a little bit baffling because I'm not up with the Lantern sort of lore and all that, but it's still read as this really kind of cerebral sort of sci-fi adventure, and there was sort of like swashbuckling and espionage and clandestine acts and all that kind of thing. So it'd been, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years since I read any Tom King. It is so good, and it's instant, and it has everything. It's got like the levity, it's got the tragedy, it's got like this as well, kind of like almost like secret underlying sadness as well, that sort of permeates through the whole story. And one of the things that I wrote down was that how in sequential art, like how do you like draw something that's not said aloud? Like, how do you sort of draw like an oppressed feeling? Like, it's almost impossible. But throughout the comic, you actually felt that Kara was not acting against her will, but she was kind of like bound by this kind of like destiny and sort of going through the motions because that was what was expected of her. Really, really surprised. Then I read after that Heroes in Crisis, which was pretty good, but not quite as good as that. So yeah.
Who's the
Woman of
artist on Supergirl? Do you
Oh,
remember?
damn, I don't know off the top of my head. No, I don't.
Was
But it
it
is
is
beautiful.
is it Philip Andrade? Is it him or the
Well, I
one who
can look
did
it up, that's for sure.
yeah, Layla? Is it the same artist that did Layla Starr? I don't remember. Sounds
Oh
right,
no, you
but
may if you.
mm, anyway.
But the trouble that I had as well of getting it before we taped the episode last week, I got it. I got it once in German about 2 weeks before, and I got another English one 2 days afterwards that I ordered the day after the German one arrived. So fortunately, Amazon had them back in stock about 3 days before the episode. So I was just like, bye, Amazon Prime.
I'm
Arrived the
seeing
next day. Sweet as a nut.
the artist is Bilquis Everly.
Everly? Okay.
Bilquis. I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
Yeah,
I
and it's
heard.
beautiful. And the good thing about the trade as well, it comes on newsprint, so it just looks. Do you know, like when you can kind of almost smell the story because
Mhm.
on the it feels like thicker paper and it's not got that awkward reflection or shine when you're trying to angle it away from the light to try and read each panel. Yeah, just a really good. It's not just reading. Like it wasn't just good reading; it was a good reading experience.
Mhm. Yeah, I like the newsprint too. The ink,
Yeah,
like you don't get that gloss finish, so it's not coated or anything. So you really get the smell of the
yeah,
ink,
yeah,
like you
yeah.
say, a little more. Yeah, yeah, for
Mm.
sure. Yeah,
It's like
Johnny.
the old Vertigo ones, isn't it? So go on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, what was the other one that was like that? The first trade for Deceased was like that. They did it with a newsprint, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
The only
Yeah,
comics I really remember smelling the ink on is Avatar Press. I don't know if you've ever cracked open one of their books. Like they reek. They have like
they
this
read.
really
Yeah,
funky smell with the ink, man.
yeah.
Is that
This
was
book when
Cressy
I
on Avatar?
Yeah, Creasy was an Avatar book.
uh,
Yeah,
this one smelled big time the ink because I think they probably just fucking
dude.
as soon as they were printed, they packed them and sent them. So like the book was never open, right? Yeah, it's kind of gone away a bit, but when I got this from the Kickstarter, oh my god, Cosmic Detective, man, you open that box up and you could waft of like the ink smell. Just
Yeah,
I
that's like
remember,
busting out an old issue of an Avatar book, then, man. Yeah,
yeah,
'cause
and
I
I
remember
remember
when I
Goose got his, and some of the pages were stuck together because I think the ink didn't have enough time to kind of
Oh
settle and dry
no.
properly. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I
So I
remember
think
when I
they packed them right away. Sorry, go ahead, Johnny. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember when I got the first issue of Crossed by Garth Ennis and busting that open. It wasn't the first Avatar book I ever read, but it's the one I equate that smell most to because the book
yeah,
is so effective, and then you get that just rancid ink smell at the same time, and it's just
yeah.
really effective.
Yeah, it accompanies it so well. uh, so, do you want to go next, Johnny, or what? Or did you have anything else, Matt?
Um, Let me think. I don't think so. Um,
No.
oh well, going back a little bit, we watched. I spent a day at the cinema, and it's the best from start to finish day I've been to. I watched. Started off with 65, which really impressed me, considering it didn't get any.
Hmm.
Well, it only really had moderate press. Really good, 90 minutes. Why do films all have to be 2 hours? And then speaking of that, I watched John Wick 4. And the final one, what did I watch? Oh, I watched Pearl. I love
Pearl.
that film
Yeah,
so
that
much.
was good.
I
Yeah, I
love
enjoyed that
that
one too.
film so much.
Hmm.
Like Mia Goth
Yeah.
is just like a tour de force. It's the kind of performance where, and it's so delicately poised where you fear her and you also fear for her. Like
Yeah.
you always kind of like and she does it so well that you're kind of like, is she actually crazy?
Yeah. Oh, and that has my favorite end credit scene. Fantastic.
Yeah,
It almost looks painful watching her like that
it
whole
does look
time, like
painful.
this. Or she's just holding it, and
It,
I'd have to. I didn't
yeah,
time it. I'd have to time
it's
it.
five
How
minutes.
long? It's
Five
5 minutes.
minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes where she's
It's
holding that fucking
crazy.
smile. It almost looks like torture. And it was that was my favorite part of the movie was the closing credit. Yeah, I love that. It was good. Yeah.
She's been confirmed for the Blade film as well, which is really exciting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah. I think in the last couple of days she's been. I hope though that she is used correctly and isn't just a kind of just
If she's the villain, she
disposable
won't be.
one and done villain.
You know Marvel films and their villains, so if
Mhm.
she's a villain,
Yeah,
she's gonna get shit on.
yes. Yeah.
But
The problem with Blade as well is who would you? I've not.
nope.
I There was a 4-part miniseries, was a Guggenheim run that I had as well. I think ran around the time of Civil War, but I haven't read that much Blade, and I don't know, other than like obvious vampires, Dracula, and that kind of thing. Like, who would his antagonist be?
She's probably not gonna be the villain, though. I would say she'd probably be a helper of some kind, but um, I'd say they'd
The
probably go
Daryl
with Deacon
Dixon role.
Frost again. I mean, he's kind of like the
Mm.
most known one. That's
Hmm.
kind of like the Blade's Joker.
Hopefully they'll switch it back to from PG to R.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah.
That's wishful
Green,
thinking.
get ready for
Although-
green blood, man. Green
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah.
I think though that you can do a lot with on-screen violence without it having to be like a PG-13 can go quite far. It's just it's
I
just
think what they're
curse
gonna
word
do
count,
is
no blood and no sex. You can push that quite far. I mean, look at some of the like in Winter Soldier. Like there was some pretty sort of like graphic hand-to-hand combat scenes where there's like broken limbs and like full force contact, like headshots and that.
But-
It's just you'll never see the blood splatter.
Yeah, but Blade's supposed to be like murdering vampires the whole time, which I think they can get away with. They're just gonna ramp up the CGI skeleton burning up thing. Like they're just gonna.
But I mean,
it's gonna
like-
be a bigger celebration of that than the older movies were.
that the intro of the original movie is just so fantastic. Like, I mean,
The blood
And
without the R rating, you won't be able to do that. Like,
no
such
blood.
a great,
It was
such a
so
great opening.
loud as well.
Yeah, it was. I loved
So
it. That
loud.
opening.
Yeah, but
Anyway.
rating's not
The-
huge
the
right now.
two
Well, you'd
loudest
be like
things
cutting
that-
up kids at like a TikTok concert or something like that. I don't know what the hell Blade would be killing vampires at, because I don't think people rave anymore, do they?
I don't know.
I don't really hear techno anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Mm.
Although to be fair though, if I was like a teenager or in my early 20s, I wouldn't really want 40-year-old men to really know where the raves were either. So I'm quite content that they're carrying it on without my knowledge.
Yeah.
Especially if they'd be raving in like slaughterhouses and all the weird places where like they'd be having raves at in the Blade movies. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. Like, I was talking with someone the other day. I was like, you could put an 18-year-old and a 28-year-old in front of me side by side, and I couldn't fucking tell you which one was 28 and which one was 18. I have no like concept now of younger people. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Just generically young.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, girls my age, I can pick up if they're close to my age. There's little hints, like they start getting a little bit of wrinkle here or there, slightly. But yeah. I've lost touch. I can't. Yeah. All right, Johnny, you want to go for your check-in, or do you want me to go?
I only really read one thing. It was The Nasty by John Lee's his new Vault book. Really, really cute, really fun. First issue, enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, we love John Lee's on the show, so if you haven't checked it out, definitely give that book a look. It's good fun. Just came out this last week, so
yeah. I was supposed to read it and fell asleep last night. I was supposed to make the intro and read Nasty, and I didn't do that either because I fell asleep. That's another thing about getting old. You're supposed to do things, and you just take naps instead.
I fell asleep in the middle of the day yesterday. I had my dinner and I had my lunch and a cup of coffee. I thought I'd just lie down for a minute. I knew what was happening because as the YouTube video was there, I was like, well, I'll just listen to it for a minute.
Turn away from it, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just listen to it. It'll be fine. I'm not getting snuggly.
hey Manny.
Hey Manny. All right, so I'll do my check-in. I read a few things. The Firstborns, number 3. This is 2/3 of the writing team that did Heavy Metal Drummer, the Pliskins, and basically it's the same creative team that did Heavy Metal Drummer minus Kiefer, who's one of the co-writers. It's got Lucas Basayo, who's the artist on it, and it's typical to their style with like aliens taking over people's bodies and stuff like that. So I dug it, man. It's pretty good. And I was chatting with them on Instagram, and they actually put this book out before Heavy Metal Drummer, but for some reason it got published after. But that was the book we worked on before. Almighty, La Roque, Lagos. This one's really good. It's that dystopian Mad Max style thing, like with the main protagonist being like that Furiosa looking girl who's badass. That one, yeah. She's awesome. The art in this is super good.
Nice.
The action is great. Yeah, so that's a good one. That's it. I'm on issue 3 when hasn't disappointed. And I read issues 2 and 3 of Where Monsters Lie.
Yeah, that one's hella good.
Yeah, I mean, if you like action in your horror comics, issue 2 and 3,
And some
especially
good
3.
comedy. It's a funny
Yeah,
book
and
too.
it's funny as well. So, especially issue 3 doesn't let up. Issue 3, man, is just balls to the walls, man. This is a great issue. Number 3, man. Woo! Balls to the walls. There's a lot of bloodshed in number 3. So, yeah. And I watched the Netflix series Beef, which wasn't half bad, man. I just didn't like the ending. Like, I was like, please don't make it typical like every other fucking. And of course they did. So, but the rest of it wasn't bad.
What's the show called?
I'm really
Beef?
interested.
What?
Beef.
Beef? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that the one with Stephen Young and Ali Wong?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
the Walking Dead kid, right?
Yeah. That's
the,
it. Pat's
the cowboy
watching it.
from Nope. Yeah, he was
Pat's watching it, and she's like, I don't understand. I was like, what? And then she was like, oh, she saw an ad for it. She's like, beef. She didn't get it at first. She didn't realize beef as in conflict. So after 3 episodes, she's like, I get it now. It was funny. She looks at me. She's like, she shakes her head. It just clicked. I was like, what? Beef. I was like, you're slow. Yeah, but it was pretty good. All in all, it was a solid show. It's just I didn't particularly enjoy the ending, but yeah. But it was only the last 10 minutes, so the rest of it's good. Yeah.
So Stephen Young's slowly becoming like that Academy level actor. Like when you think Minari did really well, was it last year or the year before? When like he started off making supporting actor roles, like in Sorry to Bother You, which is a film I absolutely adore. And then he's been cast in the Thunderbolts as well, and there's rumors that he's going to be Sentry in that, which I'm not completely on board with that being the character, because I don't know if that's going to be the film for
Sentry didn't become a Thunderbolt until the Dark era, anyways, or Dark Hero era.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm thinking like he might be more like somebody like Fixer or Mach 4. You know what I mean? Like an actual classic Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
Would be more fun, I think, than trying to bring Sentry in, because Sentry is part of Squadron Supreme, anyways. Why would they just introduce him as a Thunderbolt? That's a weird.
My thought was that the rumors are that he's going to be President Ross at this point, and he's going to be get the what's it like Project X or whatever it is, like the super soldier thing back underway, and that's when he finally becomes Red Hulk. So if you can imagine Harrison Ford becoming Red Hulk. So I think, and without it being obviously like race casting, but he could be Amadeus Choi or Chow or whatever, who became Totally Awesome Hulk, the Korean Hulk. I think that to me seems like a almost too obvious casting.
But if you like him, have you watched Atlanta?
I watched the first one, but I wasn't like overly enamored by it. I thought it was good.
You got to keep watching it, because
just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, well, the second season's really, it's good. There's a great episode where he goes to pick up a piano, and it's focused just him. It's just him the whole episode. It's really good. If you're gonna, I can't remember the name of it, but go watch that one episode. You'll see that episode is fantastic. Is it in season 3?
I don't know, Joe, but you know what you sound like to me right now? You sound like every person that told me to keep on watching Walking Dead, because I'm not Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, because the next season's when it proper starts getting good. I made it to the 4th season and then I gave up, mate.
Yeah. But I'll look it up after, and I'll send you the which season, which episode, because you have to at least watch that one episode. And
okay, I'll do that for you. You've been nice enough to invite me on your episode,
no, but I mean,
so it's at least I can do in return.
It's good. You don't have to have watched any of the other episodes. Like, if you saw the first season, you understand his character. So I mean, that's all you
Yeah,
need, right? It's a standalone episode. It's really good. I'll send you so you can at least queue that one up and watch it, because if you like him, he's really good in that.
That is a good question. When did you stop watching Walking Dead, Matt?
I never stopped watching it. What
Oh,
happened was,
really?
right, this is
Wow.
this is the interesting thing about Walking Dead. That there was clearly, after the 6th season, a clear like decline in the writing. Now, what I didn't
I'd say
realize,
after
and
the
I
first
found out
season that
part way,
happened, but okay. Like,
and like after that, I persevered because I thought it's probably just going to get better again, which it did later on, around sort of maybe 9, 10, or 11. I can't remember. And then I was so close to the final season. What I did last year was I watched it all again from the start to the finish. And I can confirm that the first 6 seasons are the good seasons. But the interesting thing about those is Robert Kirkman was actually in the writer's room for 7 to 8 hours a day for the first 5 seasons and did like a blueprint for the 6th season. And I thought it can't be purely coincidental when, for me personally, it fell off a cliff after that. But he was doing a full-time job for that as a script writer, and then going back and then trying to write almost like a half an issue or an issue a night of maybe like Invincible and The Walking Dead, or maybe Outcast was going, trying to get the scripts over to the artists who were drawing them quicker than he could write them at that point.
Yeah.
So he basically threw the TV program, the lucrative television program, under the bus so he could keep writing comics that everybody now calls him a hack.
What's the other one he did? Oblivion Song?
Oblivion Song, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he was
liked it.
working on.
I thought that was good.
He was working on that at the same time too. So yeah, he had a lot of stuff on his
Yeah,
plate.
I mean, but I like him. I think he's unfairly sort of like, I could understand Jason Aaron did fall off after his peak, and like Bendis had his 10-year plan, and then after that he was just spinning wheels until he went to DC, and now of course Dark Horse. But I think Robert Kirkman has been unfairly sort of branded with that past his peak, like a bit of a hack. He just I mean, he does regurgitate ideas a bit, because like Oblivion Song, Outcast, and Walking Dead were kind of like this sort of wayward sort of father figure that needs to get his shit together, that has provided crisis. In one case, it's monsters, and the interdimensional monsters, and the other it's like poltergeist and possession and stuff, and the other one it's zombies, and that makes him become a bigger man and a leader. So I understand there are reoccurring themes. However, I would argue that in each case, yes, it's been done before, but it ain't been done like this.
Well, one thing I can always respect him for is what he's done behind the scenes for Image Comics. All the books he's helped greenlight, all the talent that he's brought in. Like, the guy is actually like a really good positive force. Yeah,
Ambassador for comics. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
will always respect him for that.
The only thing contrary to that is Skybound, I think, to my knowledge, is the only, well, let's not say the only, let's say one of the only like sub-publishers in Image that retains the IP rights against the ethos of Image. So if anything's produced off the back of it, then Skybound, sorry, it's Skybound, isn't it? Skybound retain the intellectual property of anything that goes through that as a sub-publisher, which I thought was a bit naughty, because that's against the whole ethos of Image, isn't it?
I guess, yeah. I mean, usually when people do their own little imprints, that they only publish their own books through it, though. Like Reminder and a bunch of other people. Very few people. I guess Kirkman does do it, but I don't really see too many books under the Skybound thing, anyways, that aren't his.
Yeah, I've lost track, in all honesty. I've got what's left to be read on the shelves. Like, it's come to the point now where I'm just starting at the top left, and I'm just zigzagging down to get rid of all the stuff, because you keep buying stuff. Well, at least I do, and they almost become immediately ornamental, because you've always got the ones that you want to read are the ones that you read when they come straight through the door, and the rest of them are just like, maybe I've got them. Sooner or later.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like, this wasn't even on my radar, and like, because I felt bad because I fucked up the times. I was like, you picked the book and come back on, so you picked Thistlebone, and I was like, all right, we'll read Thistlebone and we'll talk about it. So that was added on to, like you're saying, a pile of a book that I wasn't even on my radar, and I end up reading it before a bunch of other books that I've had for 3 years. You know.
Do you know how I came to find it? Because Tim has basically everything, and like we exchanged gifts at Christmas. That I would, for probably December, was always catching up with the stuff, making sure I'd read everything that people had got me from the Christmas before. And then November was like the Tim reading list, where I had to find like the most obscure, unobvious shit possible, like proofread them, and then sort of clandestinely introduce them in conversations to Tim, my co-host on the M-Pod, by the way, in case you were thinking like it was my lover or anything like that. So my co-host Tim. And then I go through it, and I go, so Tim, have you read any of this obscure, like Wagner? And he went, oh, you mean plastic? And I'll be, yep, plastic. Cross that one off.
Yeah.
And so
like just like
one of the ones that. So Thistlebone was one of the ones I was like, there is a zero chance of him. Like, but even stuff like the Contract with God trilogy from like William Eisner from like the 20s or 30s. And I was like, Tim, have you ever read any Will Eisner? Because I feel like it's something we should have read. And he was like, oh yeah, just a couple of months ago, I just like completely smashed through everything he did. I was like, oh, okay. Like, should we just cancel Christmas then, mate?
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's a good idea, but
yeah, I think he slowed down though, hasn't he? On buying comics, hasn't he cut back a little? It seems to me I thought I heard him say that in one of the pods.
Well, I think the thing with Tim is when Fresh Start happened, I decided to go to trades. And now, because they're always available, and the relief, the sheer weight lifted off my shoulders for not having to buy 60, 70, 80, 90 Marvel comics a month and then try and read the good stuff from everywhere else and whatnot. The relief of not having to deal with that anymore was just tangible. The problem I have now is I have 20 long boxes of all kinds of comics. I think 5 of them are since 2015, and I will never ever read any of them again. So I just wanted to me and Tim had the conversation of let's just cut it off and go digital. And it's like, well, then what use are these 20 long boxes? And it's like, well, there's too many to just give to a kid because you'll never even start reading them. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think he said he's still picking up.
He'll fill up their room too if you give him like 20 long boxes, man. Like you just it's just fill up your whole room with these.
And the thing is, like, I ain't got any kids around, so there's no like legacy to them. It's like I'm going to die, and then they're just going to be given to a charity shop anyway. So I might as well do it for myself now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, for sure.
You better hope you die before me, mate, or otherwise you'll be picking up the sort of reverse call charges to Canada.
Yeah. Fucking here's $1,000 worth of his shipping charges. I was like, what the fuck is this? They'll fucking pull up a cube truck. Will be backing up. Yeah.
Did you buy 20 heavy boxes from the internet yesterday? Oh, maybe what's inside them?
Yeah, you don't want to see my office. My office is a fucking wreck, man. I gotta get rid of some comics too, because I refuse to pay storage. If I'm putting them in storage, I'm not keeping them. I'm not gonna start doing that. Yeah, I won't do that. I'd rather just sell them or give them to someone.
The best idea I've heard is taking them to a con and selling them in like. I'll probably keep the X-Men ones because I think I keep the X-Men because I think from like 0 to 650, I'd probably have somewhere in the region of 500 to 525 of them from start to finish. And then my Punisher ones because they're from childhood, and maybe Ghost Rider. And then the rest of them, I do like Kelly Thompson's Hawkeye, which is a desirable set. I'd sell it for like £1 an issue, 25 quid or whatever. But you have to take the 4-part CM Punk Drax series as well. And they're like, okay, how much can I get them without the Drax? And I'd be like, it's fucking double.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
care
yeah.
how I don't care what you do with the Drax limited series, but you're taking it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're putting everything at like $1, you'll get rid of a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of people are just hunting for like those dollar bins and just to try to find like a few little gems here and there. So people love dollar comics.
The problem with that is though, when you've got what's like 20 times 200, so that's like 4,000 comics or something like that, and or is it? Yeah, it's not 40,000. So 4,000. You'll get cherry picked, and then you'll just be loaded with a load of shitty odds and ends. And I don't have the patience then to. And there'll be so. I mean, I just think, yeah, like I said, the best thing is to just sort of like bulk buy them, cradle them into like sets or whatnot, and then just get rid of them on the cheap.
Yeah, sets. There's a place I buy from, and they just sell sets. Like, unless it's a really big key that's worth like close to the hundreds, they'll sell it separately. But otherwise, it's sets, and you buy the whole thing.
Do you know what? I don't even know if I've got the patience for that though, Joe. I just if I know I can get £1 for each issue, just take them. Just take them. Like it means nothing to me.
They're already packaged in a bag together, so you can't like take them apart. So when they pull it out, they're all in the one bag. So and the price is on it. This set is that much. So they see the price, they know what it is. It's like
exactly.
There in my hand. That's yours now. So get the fuck out.
Yeah, even like wrap them in brown paper and do it with a marker pen. Like full set sold as unseen.
Yeah. Yeah, the surprise packs. Yeah.
Yeah, and then between
you
the
open it up,
and
there's like a number one of the issue, and the rest are like just crappy Superman issues and stuff.
And then
Death of Superman. I got screwed.
And between the last 2 issues of every packet, there's just a picture of me nude in the shower.
Yeah. I think the cops will be showing up before the end of the convention, taking you away. You're like, you're selling nude pictures to you're selling nude pictures to minors. That's illegal.
Yeah, not to children, Joe. No, not to children. That's not what I meant. It disappoints me that that's what your mind went to. First point.
That's true. Kids don't buy comics. It's all like fucking middle-aged white men that buy comics.
Exactly right. Well, I think I've derailed this again in our chat. Do you want to crack on with the old Thistlebone?
Yeah, we'll get to the book. Yeah. So Thistlebone, book 1 and book 2. That's a 2000 AD release. What was the years on that? 20.
It was very recent. It's a pretty new book from them. All things considered.
Like 2000. What was it?
2021 and 2019.
I was say,
yeah, 19 and 21. So book 1 came out in 19, and then book 2 came out in 2021. Yeah. So yeah, fairly.
Because I actually thought they were OGNs, but they're not. They're like when we read Desolation Jones, they were actually each one was like 10-page serialization in the monthly 2000 AD solicits.
Weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah, weekly. Yeah. Sorry, man.
Yeah. So this is
what is it? Do more like this though.
Like put it in a hardcover and then release the full story.
Hardcover magazine shape. Yeah.
I don't see Rebellion written on here. That's strange because Rebellion bought 2000 AD. I thought I'd see their company. They bought them a while back. Gutenberg manufactured.
A video game company? I'm glad it's not on there.
Oh yeah, it's on there. Rebellion 2000 AD Limited. Okay, it's in the fine print on the. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not super familiar with the creative team on this. You got TC Eglington and Simon Davis. Simon Davis I'm a little more familiar with, but I'm not as familiar with the writer. And letters are by Annie Parkhouse.
T.C. Ellington writes a lot of stuff for 2000 AD. He's never really made the jump to American comics like Spurrier or a lot of the other guys of his. But like he's written quite a bit, especially kind of horror stuff. So this is kind of his wheelhouse within the 2000 AD mechanism.
Simon Bolin does letters on this second book. Okay, so it's a different letterer from book 1 to book 2. Cool. All right, so book 1, man. Book 1. This is something that Matt suggested that we read because he's our guest, so we let him pick.
I did, yes.
Yeah,
That's very gracious of you.
I'll let you start, man, because you recommended this, so we'll let you kick it off.
Okay, well, I don't like this part of my own podcast, but I'll do my best. It is a British folk. It's in the British folk horror tradition, sort of going back to the original sort of Wicker Man, and even kind of elements to sort of like Watership Down that has been made sort of more familiar to American audiences by A24 films recently, like Men and sort of Midsommar. It has this kind of sort of backwash, sort of narrow alley, sort of countryside town that also it has a secret, but is this secret just the sort of willing participation of the people that live there, or is there more supernatural clandestine acts afoot? And yeah, so I think first of all, Joe, did you enjoy this one?
Book 1, if I just had to read book 1 and then not continue, I don't think I would have recommended it to anyone. But because it does a fantastic job setting up book 2, which I loved. So like the two books together were phenomenal. Like I really dug it. But if we would have just picked the one book, I would have been like, it's interesting. I enjoyed it. I like the aspects of, like you said, the mystery. Is it actual supernatural, or is this all like a mass hysteria where people get on board and they all think there's something weird going on, even though there's nothing? It's all in their minds, right? They like the mind makes you think things, and like it creates like kind of a mass hysteria. There's like the kind of like a pagan cult, but is there really anything more to it? Is there really a spirit, a presence, like the god they worship? Like, does that actually exist, or is this just a group of people being duped by this one person who's preaching, right? They kind of leave it ambiguous. And I think that lends itself well to the story because it creates that mystery, like you said, where you're questioning it. And it doesn't hold you by the hand. You could either believe there are the spirits, or depending on your personality, you could be like, nah, this is all just people, falling into that idea and letting themselves get taken away with it, so...
I like the way as well. I think horror is probably, I wouldn't say the hardest, because comedy is probably the most unsuccessful genre in comics. I've not read too many. There was Citizen Jack that I think I sent to you. That one did make me chortle on occasion, but it's really difficult. But horror, because it's a very audio-driven medium in film, like the tension is driven. Like if you took away the soundtrack or the score for a horror film, you've got a very different experience. And also the timing of the page turn, the build up to when the turn of the page is the closest thing you get to like a jump scare. I think it manages that really well. What I also liked was this sort of staging of kind of like mid-page jump cuts. It was almost like, is it Argento, the Italian horror maestro from the 80s and 70s? Is that who it is? Like the way that it sort of cuts in, it might like cut in like a spinning skull on a red background, and then it'll go back to the sort of like narrative storytelling. And the way that this kind of like splices in kind of like sudden skulls or like beastly oversized shadows in the background, again, the art style makes you think that are we reading a direct interpretation of the story, or is this kind of more so a sort of a crypt keeper telling us the sort of story where there's more artistic license, and that kind of confusion. I know I listened to one of the interviews with the creative duo, the artist, and sorry, I can't remember their names, and they said that creating a sort of uncanniness to it was one of the main objectives, and I think less so with the unreliable narrator, because I think that it wasn't really a narration of what's the protagonist's name? Is it
You had
Eldon?
You had
What's her name?
Avril.
Avril and what was the
Yeah, Avril. That's it. Yeah, Avril. Because I don't feel like she was an unreliable narrator. I feel that like the actual narration was leading you to make up your own mind which way it was going.
Well, you had her, which she's kind of disturbed, and then you had the reporter who was like a doubting Thomas. So you kind of had like these two opposing narrations going on in the first book, where like you weren't sure what was going on, because one person you're assuming is crazy, and the other one is like trying to be logical, but is missing some big stuff in front of her. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
In my opinion, like there was some really big red flags, more than just people, because basically like they go to the town where the girl Avril, she escaped from the cult, and they basically go back to the town where the cult was located at, and it's completely different. Like there's a beautiful, picturesque, like almost hot fuzz type town there now, and but like if you still go into the woods, you'll find dead animals and like blood carvings of like ritualistic things in the ground. And the whole time the reporter's just kind of like, I don't think there's anything big going on here. When it's like, come on, man, there's dead animals in the woods. That's pretty creepy. That's going a little overboard. So I was an edgy kid, and sure, I spray painted some stuff, but I never murdered an animal and like drew shit with its blood. You know what I mean?
And another thing,
I don't know anybody that did. Even the craziest kids I knew didn't do that shit. So.
But even they make her appearance eerie, like the blue tone to her skin.
Yeah, the blue tone to it. Yeah.
Like you're thinking, is she really there? Is she a spirit? Is she like? You question it for a split second, like, because right? Is this the manifestation of a person? Maybe she did, like you thinking, did she really die? And this is like someone coming to see the reporter, like leading the reporter to this place to figure the mystery of what came of her, right? To unveil her misfortune, right? And I kind of thought that for a while because of the blue tint of her skin, but so that gave her character that kind of bizarre eeriness, especially that contrasted with the red jacket, right? The blue tone of the skin with the red jacket.
Yeah.
Which I mean, that's a weird appearance. Like, and no one ever, like, whatever. We got this girl with blue skin and a red jacket, and it just seems normal. Everyone's just going about their business, and
There was something that I picked up on that's quite a common trope in these kind of like rural folk horror things, is that they always come from the city to go and find something in the sort of country and the more bucolic life. And it sort of made me think that like in the city life there's more opportunity, but like kind of canonically less freedom, which is kind of contrasting because you're kind of built by society, like restricted by sort of like societal norms. But then when you get to these smaller settlements, that there is less opportunity and it's more a sort of linear path, but there is more opportunity to actually sort of delve into the sort of hidden aspects of bizarre, because the actual physical sites are more hidden from sort of society.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind type thing, right? So
yeah.
Like chances are no one's gonna like stumble upon it while they're going out for a walk, because it's in a secluded area where it's no one goes, right? So you're safe. You can, like you said, take your time, do what you want, and you can be more calculated. Take your time. You're not
right.
Yeah.
And like, if you wanted to like run Bollico from one end of the village to the other, you'd probably get a talking to from like the local copper, but you wouldn't like get arrested, all right? But if you were to run Bollico through the middle of a city centre, you'd be arrested and you probably wouldn't be let out for a good amount of time.
As long as you keep it for the
So it
greater
seems like
good, and you don't mess with the village's rustic aesthetic. You know what I mean? You just
Yeah.
keep the great.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not talking about like. Okay, I won't say anything else.
But this first
I'm
book,
just not talking.
yeah. But this first book kind of, I think it sets the stage. Like, I think he had a very specific way he wanted to tell the story, and he picked April's story to introduce us to that pagan cult, which is, and introduce the reporter, right? That's kind of writing the book and doing her research. Seema is the reporter, and it definitely sets the stage perfectly for book 2. And I appreciate it for that. That was really, really effective. And then when you start reading book 2, that's where then it's the reporter story takes over. So like book 1 is more April's story, and then book 2 is more geared towards Seema digging and trying to uncover the mystery.
Yeah, because she's like writing a book of her experiences. Well, she was writing a book initially, wasn't she? And now she had like first-hand experience of it. So, and she actually kind of picks up. She almost picks up where Avril actually started in the first volume. Like almost there's kind of like a mirroring to the way their stories develop.
Yeah, because she's spiraling now. She's at the beginning of the book, she's buying a bottle and she runs into her friend, and she actually like at first sees Avril's face on her friend, which freaks her out.
Yeah,
with, kind of really cool jump scare right there at the beginning.
A little PTSD, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like she drops the story, right? She doesn't want to write it anymore because she thinks it's exploitive to tell Avril's story because she's a victim, right? And then her what is it, her agent, publisher, whatever it is that you call them there, goes and sees her and tries to get her take it from a different angle. Don't tell her story. Tell the overall story of this group of people, not just she's just one of many. Like she said, you did all the legwork. You did all that. You did like interviews of many people that were part of it. So just take it from that angle. Tell it from that story, and kind of hooks her in to kind of keep going with her research and digging stuff up. And that,
and it also builds on the lore too. Like it kind of really address that there was a lot more stuff going on in that village before the cult happened. Like you get like this story about a cop that gets found dead out in the woods back in the 60s. You get this camper story in the 80s, which is actually kind of a big part of the book. So I really like that they really flush out the character of Thistlebone and the lore of the village.
Of the town, that's it. The village becomes like the main kind of character. And the people in it are just like supporting characters to the village's story, right? And I think that's effective because you can go in so many different directions when you focus on the town instead of an individual. And I think that's where the turn in book 2, which that's what I really liked about book 2, is it's less about the story of an individual and more about the overall lore of the pagan cult, the town, the history. And I think he did a really good job on how he approached and explained that part of the book.
When talking about the campsite scene, and they were like, we don't speak about what's happened and all that kind of thing, and she does a little bit of digging. The opening framing of that made me think it was going in a very different, almost darker direction, because the opening sort of gambit of that, because it also changes the art style to very sort of back pages of the Sunday newspapers, watercolor, very basic art, and I thought that was to hide
very Matt Kinty is what it kind of reminded me of, Matt Kent stuff a little bit,
like to kind of like to hide the horrible accent, because when he says, "Oh, all the kids pair up for the tents," and the older gentleman, the scoutmaster, says, "Well, you have to bunk with me. All boys together don't mind." And I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, they told a lot without having. Yeah, without having to actually say what was going on, be crude about it, they let you know exactly what was up. Which I thought was really good writing.
But the style, like it's done in like a children's story, right? Like the style of it, it's drawn out, and it's kind of like a children's storybook. The way they do the backstory for the camping story, and like I was talking with Johnny yesterday, and I was like, I wonder if they did the contrast to make it less off-putting for people reading it, because
100%, it sanitizes it.
Yeah, so it's less shocking to people, maybe, or maybe it makes that doubt in your head, because why would you tell this story in that style, right? It kind of puts a doubt, like maybe they aren't going in that direction, when come to find out, that's definitely the direction they were going in.
Well, even with the cartoonish art, like it's very uncomfortable. Like the two panels where the guy's just like touching the kid's shoulders and smiling, like.
Yeah, and also there's almost a dramatic irony from it, because it's a lot more innocent way of drawing, and then when it changes, that series of events is interrupted by this sort of the fable, at least, of the monster in the woods, then it goes back to this kind of very dark and mysterious, almost like the innocence has been lost with the art style after that. So there is, I thought, at least there was at least a slight amount of dramatic irony in the way that was drawn.
Yeah, it's much darker and more serious when that is introduced, and like you said, then it gets all light and kind of, it definitely changes in tone, like you said, for sure. Those. And
there was something as well. Go on, Joe. Sorry, mate.
And that part of the story is where they're like, oh, there's this presence, and that's why we. Like, it justifies the trauma and how they reacted to it, instead of being like, yeah, this dude fucking took advantage of us and we were pissed, so as a group we decided to get our revenge. But they kind of don't take ownership of it. They're like blaming it on like Thistlebone, right? He influenced us, instead of owning that and being like, no, he deserved this and we did that to him. Instead, it kind of takes ownership away from them, and
Have you guys seen Smile from last year?
Yeah.
So I think the reason why I liked the first volume more was that even with Smile, what made it more sinister is that you don't actually know whether she is having some kind of like episode or like breakdown. So you're never too sure which side of, are you rooting for the people to believe her, or are you rooting for her to sort of wake up from the delusion of Smile? And I think that's why I like the first volume of this, whereby I was never too sure which way it was going, and it was very much, here's the story, and we're not going to explain it. I feel like in the second volume, there was a lot more, we're going to present you a situation, but then we're going to offer you the alternative at the same time, where it was a lot more separated in the second volume, and a lot more deliberately, is this a mass hysteria, or is there something supernatural going on?
Yeah. And even in the second one, you're still unsure. By the end, you kind of got it. You have a better idea. Like, you think by the end, you're like, okay, I think I know what's going on. But even then, like the second one is like, it's revealed, and like all horror books, there's the misdirection, right? And that's what the first one was, is the misdirection. They miss. So then you're like, okay. And then from the end of the first one, I'm like, how are they going to continue this story, right? I was wondering, like, how is this story going to continue after the ending of that first book? Because it seemed to be like tied up pretty good with a nice little bow, right? And then the way they introduce everything in the second and how it ties into the first, that one thread that throughout was really, I think they did a good job of it. It was very cohesive. It didn't seem jarring from one book to the other, how they continued the story. It seemed very natural and fluid.
I just really wish the second one was longer. I wish that they would have expanded the length of it, because usually 2000 AD will do that too with the second run of a strip. They'll give them a little more time to flesh out the second story, but the second one was about the same length, and there are so many plot threads that are introduced that kind of just seem cut 100%. Off at one point, and that's the kind of the reason why I'm kind of very critical to the second book, even though I prefer it. I think it had a better story. I do think the first one jives a lot better as a cohesive story, though. The second one, like, a lot of plot threads get cut, which I
ended
really hope,
abruptly as well.
Yeah.
But I think they're coming back with it, because it really seems like they were setting up for something even bigger. with the second book.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
Yeah, but I love where all the little threads were going in that second book
Yeah.
with the introduction of new characters and stuff, and the scope of this. Like, okay, it goes beyond what we thought. Like, how big does this?
Yeah,
How
yeah,
far
yeah.
does it reach? Like, it's like that conspiracy. Who's in on this? Who's, like. I like that part of the story. They did a really good job of like expanding on that. Yeah.
I tell you a funny thing. What you've just said to me, in my mind, I was like, you've just described the third volume of every single Donny Cates ongoing title.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, maybe it's maybe that's
you thought it was just these vampires. It's all the vampires.
maybe that's Donny Cates' other pseudonym for writing. Maybe he goes under Ellington. Maybe this is a Donny Cates book now.
Yeah, maybe if he wrote this before he started at Marvel. Whoa!
but the art, yeah. But we didn't talk much about Simon Davis, but the art in this is fantastic. It's
so good.
It is very
so
good.
metal, like
yeah, and the tones, like he from page to page, he just nails the tone of each scene perfectly.
100%.
Changes the color palette slightly for, like in the first one, they don't change the style. He just changes his color palette slightly for the backflashes and the backstory. Whereas in the second one, they go with a completely different style for the, like we mentioned, the scout, like the camping story. They go with a completely different, like almost like a children's book style genre, So I thought that was pretty fun. I thought that was effective.
And one of my favorite things that he did is he mixed the two styles at the end of the camping story. I love this panel where it shows like Thistlebone, but it's still drawn in like the kind of whimsical style. I thought that was really neat that he blended the two even at one point in the second book.
And it almost like as well. Yeah, it almost like as a child, right? Your memory, like, did this really happen? And with that children's book style, it's like, do all these people remember the story as it actually happened because they were so young? Like, and as a child, you let your imagination run wild. Like, there were monsters when they're, like, and that's what adds to that whimsical of like a child's mind, right? You can play tricks and create these things that aren't really there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote down a quote from one of the panels, and it was, "No nightmare bigger than the one you can create yourself," which is kind of almost saying nothing to fear but fear itself. It's almost like it's sort of an adaptation of that. But yeah. Did you guys pick up this sort of like Charles Manson-esque sort of almost Zodiac killer edge to the second volume as well? Which goes to
definitely
sort of like visit him in prison. And he basically
that character,
the original leader of it. Yeah.
What was his name? It was Willman. Is that it, or Hillman?
Hillman, yeah.
Hillman, yeah. He definitely had, like you say, that Charles Manson. It definitely gives off that kind of vibe where he can manipulate and gather people and have them do his bidding, and without much effort or convincing, because he's like incredibly charming. And I love that Jerry Garcia character there, who's the
archaeologist. Yeah,
who just wants to get his drink on. He was a great little character that adds a little levity to the story, right? I liked him. He was pretty good.
And he's kind of, one of the first things he says was, "All right, I'll join in your dig, but I've got to ask you. You've got to answer me one question.
One question.
Is there any good cider in this town?"
He was a great character. I thought he was a nice little side character. Great addition. Yeah, definitely added a lot of levity to the second one. So it kind of brought you in and out, right? Instead of like, it was good. Like, all the little changes and the shifts back and forth, I thought made the story, like the first one tonally was more consistent, like Johnny was saying. Like, it never broke the tone, right? It was always consistent, and it built on that, right? From the beginning, it kind of built and built and built to this, like you said, like Midsummer, or that, like that, just that underlying, like, you don't know.
It
that
reminded me
uncertainty.
mostly like
Like
have
Men
you
as
guys
well.
ever seen
Men.
Kill List by Ben Wheatley? That's what the first book kind of really reminded me of.
I've not known.
Oh, you haven't
Yeah.
seen Kill List? It's really cool. Like, definitely check that out. It's if you like this kind of story.
And then like
Yeah,
that
definitely,
first
mate.
one was really consistent. And then the book 2, you had like more shifts, like back and forth with like the backstory of the children, the scenes with that Jerry Garcia character. It kind of changed the tone and then brought you in and out, right?
Well, yeah,
So-
and it's a good thing. It had more characters. It had more plot lines going on at once. But the thing is like they were so constrained with time. You kind of some important things got rushed through, in my opinion, which
Yeah.
kind of I wish that they would have gave him a
Yeah.
little bit more time to flesh out book 2. It would have been like do
I was
a
really
Snyder
surprised
cut.
when it said the end.
yeah, I thought I still had another 10 pages to go. But it
Yeah,
was all like
100%.
all the
100%.
covers and like the pinups and covers and stuff. And I was like, oh shit, it's done. Yeah. I thought it was very abrupt. Like, oh,
It
that's
was
it.
abrupt, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it was done that way for effect, or do you think they just ran out of page count and 2000 AD
Yeah,
had just found what was going to be starting next week?
Well, I think they already had what was good scheduled. They gave them we're going to give you this amount of strips for this amount of weeks. Yeah, and after that, we're putting back on Flesh or something else. You know what I mean? Another horror title to replace it. Because they
Joe, how
constantly
do you
rotate
think
their
this
titles.
Sorry,
Whoop.
sorry, Tony.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh no,
How do you think this compares?
Say, Joe, how do you think this compared to Desolation Jones as a sort of something that was serialized and then brought back together for a collected edition? How do you think this compared to the way it read compared to Desolation Jones?
I don't know. It definitely has. It's because it's two very different books, right? I mean, in style and in stories, but I would say it's very similar. Whereas Desolation Jones felt a little more. The end game felt a little more fleshed out. Yeah, but a little more fleshed out compared to this one. Like that one seemed like it had a fitting ending and it didn't feel rushed, right? Whereas this one, like we said, it almost seemed like it wasn't like. But I mean, even in Desolation Jones, there's 2 issues missing in that collected edition.
Yeah. Ever finished that second arc, the one that was drawn by Daniel Zazelle? Like, but like the whole first arc did get finished, and it does leave a lot in the air. Like, the one that J.H. Williams III drew. I couldn't really compare the two, to tell you the truth. I would say because I get the feeling that Thistlebone, because like the last strip ran in 21, like it can still rotate around and be told more, whereas Desolation Jones is never going to get addressed again because it was part of that laptop that got lost with all of his work. So
right, because I felt that Desolation Jones very much felt like individual short stories pulled together with an overarching narrative, and it felt more truncated, whereas I felt this was more of a traditional kind of like trade paperback that would have been conveniently split to fit the issues. Like I couldn't find the breakpoints in this when I was reading it. It read quite continuously.
Yeah. But I think because of the format too, right? It's not like because you're limited to what? He has 5 to 10 pages each issue.
I think 7 pages. I think for most, like the first chapter, they'll give them maybe like 10 pages, but then after that, it's 7 pages a week.
It's 10.
But so you're not going to do
that's exactly what it was.
7 pages and then like a cliffhanger for next one. No, you can't. You can't really do that, right? So I think that's why it's probably like you said. You don't see the breaks from issue to issue, like the individuals, how they split it up. They probably plotted it out so that it was more.
Yeah, I think it was written and drawn as one big, like kind of graphic novel, and then it was edited down and spliced to fit the format of the magazine. I think that's how most of the strips run for 2000 AD.
Because it does feel like that. Like it feels, like you said, very cohesive. Like it doesn't feel like there's chapter breaks. Like, it feels like a very
Yeah, exactly.
fluid story without any chapter breaks, or there's the obvious one between book 1 and book 2. Like, okay, we have this character is no longer the main focus, and it shifts its focus, right? There's a clear line there from book 1 to book 2, but each book itself is very fluid and like you said, doesn't really feel like there's any chapter breaks in them at all. Yeah.
I think as well with the sci-fi series, you have more of a world where you can inspect little corners, little elements, and it lends itself more to an episodic format. Whereas with a horror story, it's very much telling, not so much linear because there's a duality and almost like an intentional duplicity to it, but it's still telling a story from start to finish, a specific story.
Mm-hmm. And I think because they didn't focus, the focus of it wasn't mainly on just the characters. Like, the town with the cult drives the story. So it kind of, like, even though there's little individual threads, they still feel very cohesive and tied to the main story. Like, where it doesn't feel like little individual stories that don't tie in. Like, everything seems to tie to that point, to the one thing, right? That cult. Everything always comes back to it. So it feels very, very cohesive in that manner. Like, where each little story is tied together through this one common thread. So,
well, actually, not really the cult. It ties back to the specter of Thistlebone itself.
Thistlebone, yeah. That's it, pretty much. Yeah. That's the common
thread. Predates the cult, and actually, there's been probably several cults there because, like, in the second book, they discover this ancient tree, which is why the archaeologist is there. And there's like just all these sacrificed people in the roots of this tree that they find during this big forest fire, and it's really gnarly. And
that's where the Jerry Garcia character is introduced because of that tree. Yeah.
So, like, Thistlebone's been active in that area for I don't know, as long as England's been around, I guess, the type of thing.
And then the way they explain the bones and how many bones, like, for how many, like, decades, century, whatever, like how they explain it, like, a lot of these bones have been here forever, and like explain how, and there's a supernatural element, is how well they've been preserved over all these years. He doesn't understand, and that adds like a little supernatural element. Like, does the tree have powers? Was it the tree that preserved all these bodies, the corpses and the bones, so that they didn't like rot and decay away like they normally should? So it just adds another little supernatural element to it that's not explained or can't be explained by science.
Yeah, I mean that's why Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say there's so many different directions that the story could go from. Like, what is the origin of the Thistlebone mythos? There's still elements of the ongoing story that we've already read that are unexplained. Is it mass hysteria or is it supernatural? And then going forward, like you said, like the wider societal sort of thing of it, this feels like we've only seen maybe like 10-20% of what this story has to offer.
For sure. Yeah. Kind of like it's like the boogeyman, right? It's everyone kind of is aware of the story, and there's so many different details that people don't know, and like, as a reporter goes, she starts undigging all these things that people probably maybe wanted to forget and don't want to talk about it, and there's that aspect of it too, right? So yeah, people just want to move on and live their lives, and then you have this stranger coming in, digging up all these stories of the past and stuff, and yeah.
Well, it wasn't just her.
It kind of made me ask. Sorry, Johnny, I keep jumping in, mate, over the top of you. I do apologize. Sorry.
I forget where I was going. Go ahead, man.
Oh no, it's all right, mate. I keep doing it. You shoot.
I forgot where I was going, so you go ahead.
Well, no, I can't remember either. So let's just say we're like friends and stuff, and then we can move on and just like forgive each other.
I'm good.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
there was some interesting stuff that was introduced in the second book that I hope that they tackle, because they really introduced this cop character, and then they re-show him again when the kids are freaking out, and like I really kind of hope that they like kind of go back and say what happened with him, like because they kind of made him a weird presence in the second book. So without
Like-
really explaining too much about him, besides how his body was found in the woods.
The ambiguity of it, yeah, for sure.
But
At first,
like I said, it.
Yeah, like you mentioned the cop they found in the woods, but then you have the town cop too. Where, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like he goes to the guy's place, he looks like where he looks into the window, and then you're like, so then I'm wondering, is he in on it? Like, right? Is he part of like does it reach out to him? And they don't really explain that or explore it, right? The cop, so like he's supposed to go and check things out, but he never really comes back or comes up with any kind of conclusions or anything. It's almost either he's super incompetent or he's part of it.
Yeah.
Did you ever in the first volume ever think there was one specific panel that made me think that I will remember her name. I'm thinking of the pop star with the same name. Oh god.
Avril Lavigne.
Yeah,
Avril?
Yeah,
Avril? Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you ever think there's a specific part of it which I can't remember exactly the panel, but there was a very specific part of the first volume when I thought, is the misdirection that she was actually the cult leader and she was the actual one that's going back to the town to sort of reignite the cult? Was that ever something that sort of crossed your mind in the first volume, or was that just not something that came to mind?
Maybe at the very beginning when she wandered into the woods, like when they first get to the town and she's missing for that day, maybe at that part. But like once they start showing the guy in the green jacket kidnapping the girl and stuff, like that kind of dispelled, like either that or like that would have been a stupid thing to like make her like have a green jacket as well as a red jacket. Like,
but
I don't know.
I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah, like where they make the main threat the victim, right? Where they had her tied up because she's very dangerous, right? So she's not a victim. They're trying to protect the rest of the people from her because of like the danger she poses to everyone as a whole, right? Yeah, I can see where you get that a little bit. I got it a little bit, but then like after Johnny says, like after she comes out of the woods and nothing happens, then you're like, okay, it's established. But yeah, I see what you mean there. Yeah, I got it a little bit from the first book for sure.
But again, it's just another way that it was a very unclear narration, and that sort of, again, writing horror, you don't have the immediacy of visual and audio effects. That it's more this sort of long play of making you trying to work out and think, and the misdirection of that, where it works really well, I think, well, at least for me in the first volume and the second one as well. It's the long con with writing horror comics.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, originally book one, I read it. I read that one. I finished it. I was like, okay, I dig it. But then once I think I was halfway through book two, and I was like, fuck, this is really good. Then I was hooked. Halfway through book two, I was like, this is really good. Like how it all ties together and everything. I was hooked halfway through the second book. I was like, I love the way he set it up, and then book two takes off and really starts digging into the folklore of it all. And, yeah, so I definitely recommend, like, if you thought the pacing might have been a little slow at times in book one, like keep going because it ties in. It's such a great setup for the second volume that it'd be a shame if you didn't keep going because the payoff is definitely worth it story wise for that second volume.
And it's a quick read as well, isn't it? You could blast it in an afternoon, easy. Both of them.
Yeah, it's like the size of a novella, right? It's two novellas.
Yeah, they're both 60 pages long, basically. I think story wise, and yeah, if you get and then there's back material if you get the trades.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like they give you all the
kind of
different
like the,
covers. Yeah, a little bit of the process stuff in the back, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
how
some
did you like the
beautiful paintings.
magazine size of it?
Yeah, I
Actual
dig that,
the
man. That's the
shape
old
of it.
European. Yeah,
I love it.
European style. Yeah, it's like a European style. Do it
Yeah.
here.
Well, Fleetway always does that, or that's who used to do the old 2000 AD trade paperbacks, and they've always come with that exaggerated size, which I thought was always cool.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Well, that's
like
the size they are on the shelves each month. In actual fact, that's the size of all comics in this, at least in Britain.
Magazine, yeah, like Heavy Metal,
Yeah.
I think is the same format. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or it used to be. I don't know if it still is, but it used to be that
They
format.
put out issues as well, like for single issue books, but like the actual Heavy Metal magazine is still magazine size.
Yeah, I mean, the format doesn't really bother me as much. I think if that's something they're hung up on, I mean,
no, I wish the magazine would have caught on in the West, man, or in the U.S. and Canada, because I really like the format. I like magazines like you see in Europe and in Japan, where you get a bunch of comics in one. You get 7 pages of all these different comics in one cool magazine. And I wish that was like a more accepted thing in the United States. They have tried, like it kind of took off a little bit in the 70s, but since then, like they really haven't. There's been a few here and there, but none of them have really caught fire, which sucks in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, it's gone the other way now with the sort of rise of manga.
Yeah, the little
Like, they're just
digest
getting
size.
smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
but even in Japan, like manga comes in magazines originally, and then they put them in the little tokubons.
Oh, does it?
Okay. Like that.
That's
yeah.
Have the 3 formats here. You got your manga, your European style, and then you got your comic North American style. So you got the 3 sizes there. I mean, when it comes to it, it comes down to story, right? The story, the art. If it's done well, then I really don't care what format you give it to me in. I just want quality. Give me something good. Give me a page turner, and I don't care the size, the format. I mean, that's what's most important, right? So
yeah, it's never really bothered me.
It does feel nice though, holding a big one though, doesn't it? It does feel nice.
Yeah, I like the oversized,
like a proper hardcover.
Yeah, the oversized hardcovers are always nice. Like the Deadly Class there. Those are nice volumes they put out.
Some put out these ridiculous size ones though, man. You actually gotta like lay it down on a table to read it. You can't like actually hold it up.
Like oversized hardcover of like, I mean, that's nice, those oversized.
I'm picking that up tomorrow.
Oh,
I'm
yeah?
picking that Deadly Classic. Yeah, I have. I better say this quietly. In case someone hears. I've got 45 omnibuses coming tomorrow.
Jesus.
45. I don't know where I'm going to put them. I haven't got the space for the things I own. But what happened was that I kept unclicking for the last 3 years when I ordered stuff because I ran out of room. I just unclicked shipping and collect in store. So every time I ordered something, I figured, well, they'll just keep holding them for me, won't they? And then I got an email going, Matthew, do you think you might come and pick these up? We've got 3 wholesale boxes and we can't get to the water meter. They're getting in. I was like, all right. Do you want to meet me in Leicester and then we'll just do it boot to boot? She went, if that's the only way, we'll do that for you, mate.
He's like, they call you and be like, come pick up your books. They've become a fire hazard for the store.
That's exactly what it was like.
It's blocking the emergency exit.
Yeah. But if I'd have said no, what they're going to do? Oh, all right, then we'll give you $5,000 back. Because that's the other option.
Maybe they just start selling them. Double dip them, know, get twice as much. Do like a half price, they already got their money for them. So sell them for half price. They're making even more money, man.
Yeah, just give them away free to the first person that walks through the door.
Where is this store?
Look,
Is it worth it to buy a plane ticket?
No, probably. It's in Bedford, which is a nice area north of. So you got London, and you've got like the home counties. Which wait, where's the thing? There we go. So you got London, then you got the home counties around it, and then Bedford's just above them.
I live in Bedford, so I could show my
No,
ID
you
and be
don't.
like, "I'm coming to pick up these books." Yeah, the town I live in is called Bedford. You've mailed me stuff before,
Not the
you know
real
this.
Bedford, Joe. You're in the pretend Bedford that we made when we went to Canada, like most of your names.
Yeah. So anyway, before we get off on like nonsense, that was the episode for Thistlebone, which is man, it was a fun read. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and the price is decent for the size of the hardcover and stuff. I think I paid like about $25 for the hardcover Canadian, which is decent. That's about what novellas cost when Image puts them out. So,
Right.
you're getting the value there. It's good value for your money. And the story, the art was great. Man, go pick it up. And I think even on Kindle, if you buy it digitally, it's like half the price. So, yeah, definitely go check it out.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Thanks for the rec, Matt.
Well, I'm just glad that I didn't completely disappoint you both. That's all. If you half enjoyed it, then I'm half happy.
Yeah.
I'll sleep well tonight.
Yeah. So, in closing, Matt, do you have you want to replug your podcast and everything before we sign out?
Yeah, I very much would like to do that, Joe, because basically, I'm not saying our podcast listenership is falling off a cliff, but I'm just saying we're in stark times at the minute. However, our YouTube is going through the roof. So what I'd like is for you to follow us on every single platform and listen to every single episode, or just subscribe to us on one platform and then just forget we're there and never listen to us. I'm happy with that. Just be like another silent listener that never ever listens to us. So it is the End Pod, and you will find us on all listening locations. So like Apple Music and Spotify and on SoundCloud. And if you can't find us with that, then just search for Spank Media and The End. Because what I didn't think when I called it The End was it's quite a common phrase that's on Spotify and other places quite a lot. And if you search for it, you probably won't find us. So it's Spank Media. And also on Instagram, The End _pod, and also on Twitter. So it'd be nice to see you. If you like me, then I'm there. And also there's a man called Tim that isn't as silly as me. I'm just like the pointless Englishman, and he's the brains of the operation. So just come and find us. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me. It's been wonderful. Thanks, Johnny. It's been wonderful.
Thanks for coming on, man. I just appreciate it. I was looking forward to last time, so I was kind of disappointed we had that mix up. So, yeah. So, yeah, had a good time.
I was shitting my pants. I was nervous as heck.
Yeah.
I was quite glad when I woke up and you said I fucked it up. I was like, thank goodness for that. But this time I enjoyed it. Thank you. Thanks again.
Well, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. So Johnny, what do we got coming on Tuesday? We have Becca, right?
Becca, yeah, she's gonna come on talk to us about the Wormhole Club tragedy.
Yeah. And this is her other book,
Gina Death Valley, which is an award-winning graphic novel, which is really fun, really cool, kind of American folk horror type thing, kind of like what we're talking about today, but little more Western. Good stuff. So yeah, we're gonna have her on. Gonna have a good time. It's gonna be pretty fun, and yeah, we'll see you guys on Tuesday.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Take it easy.